the key things I want you to consider when it comes to facing your triggers is coming up with a strategy to face them. You know your story. You know the way things unfold as it relates to navigating your trauma or your transition. Strategize the way you're going to face it. Good evening, my winners and goal getters. Welcome to the Getting the Win Show. I am your host, Melissa T, the procrastination bully. If this is your first time, welcome. My mission with this show is to help women who have navigated a trauma or a transition find healing through writing their book. Okay. And today I'm diving headfirst into one of the toughest parts of the writing process and one of the toughest parts of that healing through writing process. Today, we're talking about facing your triggers, okay? And anybody who's ever written a book before will likely chime in the comments if that's you. Let me know if the most difficult part of that book writing process was having to relive your traumas again, or having to relive the most difficult or painful parts of your transition again. Put that in the chat if that's you and explain, please. Let us know in the comments how you navigated yours. In this episode, I'm going to share with you some helpful ways for you to be able to navigate that, because it is a necessary thing to experience. This may sound a little bit super direct, but when it comes to your book, when it comes to sharing your story, the most direct way out is through. I won't say the only way out is through. That's the common quote. The most direct way out is through. So that's number one, okay? The most direct way out is through. The way to get through that process is, one, having at least one who in your corner, at least one person who is a safe space for you to be vulnerable with in this moment. Whether you're reliving the one specific trauma or one part of your specific trauma that is very triggering, that makes you cry or makes you rage, that makes you want to stop writing altogether and give up on the book, you're going to need at least one who that is a safe space for you to open up and be vulnerable and just vent. Because if you've been following the show for a while, one of the things I frequently mention is the body needs words to heal. Whether you're typing them on the page or saying them aloud, the body needs words to heal. I've shared in previous episodes the power of journaling, and I recommend that as a tool here. Whether you have a who or not. So perhaps you heard me say find a who. You might be like, I don't have one of those. That's okay. Then your next option is to journal. And you might be like, okay, what's the difference between talking about it in my book or talking about it in the journal? Free flowing consciousness is the difference. When you're journaling, you get to just vent. You're writing as you feel. Like, why am I writing this in a book? What am I thinking? Who told me this was a good idea? And then cuss out the person you heard from that it was a good idea. That might be me, whatever, it's okay. Vent all of that in your journal. And it may not be a one-day thing either. Do this for as long as it will take for you to regain the confidence to continue with your book. Okay? Don't let this be something you sit on, though. Don't let this be a reason or a temptation to procrastinate. This may be a one-day thing where you pull away from the desk and just vent in a journal or to a person that's a safe space, or both. In my opinion, if you have both, do both. I strongly recommend doing both. Because the more you extract from your body, the less difficult getting through that trauma is going to be in your book process. The less difficult reliving that trauma is going to be in your book writing process, okay? So Have your safe space, your one person who you can vent to when those triggers come up. Make sure you have a who. If you absolutely don't have a who, maybe your current circle is not a safe circle and you've come to that realization, then journal. Vent in your journal. The pages don't judge, the pages won't talk back. The pages receive every single thing you write. If you're able to do both, do both. Have your safe space person as well as your journal. Do both. That way you can get through that difficult discomfort much faster so you can get back on track to finishing your book. Okay? Okay. So that's one way to face your triggers, or two technically, to face your triggers. So the next thing to consider, the next tool that you can use to face your triggers, is a quick mindset shift in remembering your why. You've navigated this transition, you've navigated this trauma. Remind yourself of why you wanted to put it in a book in the first place. Going back to the purpose of your book, which is a foundation step in writing any book, right? Remind yourself of why you were writing this book in the first place. Did you want this book to be a legacy piece for your family? Do you want this book to be a tool to help other women like yourself who are going through this? Perhaps even other men. Maybe you're a woman and you want to give a female perspective to something that men typically talk about. And maybe that's your purpose for sharing your transition or your trauma experience. But remind yourself of your why. Why am I doing this? Why was it important to me to start? Because then that can also help you push through the trauma that you're now having to relive that is so uncomfortable. Okay? So remind yourself of why. Another thing that you can use to navigate your triggers as you're reliving your difficult experiences as you're writing your story is to, going back to what I said with the journaling, use your journal to speak to yourself. You can speak to yourself aloud in the moment as well. So what I'm sharing with you can be written or spoken aloud, but speak to yourself and remind yourself that, one, you are not in that experience right now. That's important because your subconscious mind, like your mind doesn't know the difference. You're reliving it again. So your body's going to respond as if you're reliving it again. So one thing you can do is tell yourself, okay, I'm only remembering this. This is not happening right now. This experience is not happening right now. I am not in that space. I am not in that room right now. I am not in front of that person right now. My body is not experiencing the thing right now. I'm simply remembering it. Like, tell yourself these things, whether aloud or writing it in your journal. But remind yourself, like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. This is only a memory. We're not in that space right now. Here's an example of that. Dr. Anita Phillips, who is a trauma therapist, she's amazing. She's a trauma therapist and now a pastor. She now pastors the one church out in LA, that church was formerly run by Pastor Torrey Roberts. He founded it and now he has moved to Dallas to help pastor the Potter's House in Dallas with his wife, Sarah Jakes Roberts. But Dr. Anita had an experience like that back early on in her life where she unfortunately was held up, like somebody was trying to rob her, and it was an African American gentleman with locks. And many months later, this is long after the incident was over and resolved, right? She was walking, she was out in public, she was venturing out and about, and she glimpsed a gentleman that had a very similar look to the gentleman that held her up. And she resolved within herself, like, listen, I'm not about to be afraid of any of my brothers. So she told herself, like, okay, you're having a trauma response right now. Do not worry. You're not at that same car. You're not in that same parking garage. This is not the same man that held you up. Same example for you. If while you're writing your book and you're reliving this particular painful experience or this particular discomfort, this particular trauma, remind yourself in the moment, okay, you're okay. You're not in the same space that this thing happened in. Your body is not the same as it was at the time that it happened. You're not in front of the person that caused you this discomfort or this trauma. Whatever that trigger is, just remind yourself this is only a memory. Body, you are safe. Mind, you are safe. It's just me and this laptop, or it's just me and this phone, just voice recording. You are safe and okay. A great way to think about this, I just recently learned myself through Russell Brunson. He recently did his Selling Online Challenge where he teaches psychology. And one of the things he teaches to overcome objections is to break up the mind into three different entities, three different creatures. One is the two monkeys. That's your prefrontal cortex. That's the part that governs logic and decision making, right? Those are two monkeys. One is emotional, and the other one, like, they have a place that they want to go. This is the part of you that's like your will, your intent, right? The biggest part of the mind is the elephant. That's the subconscious mind. And then the other creature is the lizard, which is your fear. Okay. So I'm sharing this with you as it relates to these triggers and how to face them. That part that I just mentioned about telling yourself, body, you're okay, you're not in that experience, that is you talking to the lizard, which is the fear. Like, you're okay, you're not under threat, your body is not under threat, the mind is not under threat. It's just me and this laptop, or just me and this tablet, or me and this phone. You're calming the lizard. Okay. The other one that you want to kind of quell or ease is the elephant. That's your subconscious mind. Okay. Your subconscious mind speaks to you in stories. The lizard, which is fear, speaks in absolutes, which are not true, right? There are no absolutes. That's the only absolute that works, right? There are no absolutes, right? So your fear speaks in absolutes. So you calm your fear, you calm the lizard, you guide your elephant. So the stories that you have in your subconscious mind are what you're putting in your book. So you would guide the elephant to help the monkeys, which is your will, get to where they need to go. This goes back to what I said a few moments ago about revisiting your why. Why did you want to write the book in the first place? Those are the two monkeys. Like, they have an intent. You have an intent with this book that you're writing. Revisit what that intent is. Remind yourself that that intent is indeed honorable and indeed necessary. Your story is needed out here. Your transition, your experience, your healing from your trauma is going to be somebody else's survival guide. So remind yourself of that to give yourself the fuel you need to continue. Remind your body and remind your mind, you're okay, you are safe. We're simply reliving a memory. We're not back in that space. Okay. And hey, interestingly enough, if you go back to number one, which is having that person that's a safe space, that person may be the one to remind you, like, hey, it's okay. I totally understand that this is uncomfortable. Just remember that you're not going through this thing physically all over again. You're only retelling the story. Okay. So having that person to vent to, having your journal to vent in, both of those are going to be clutch. Reminding yourself of your why, and then telling your body, telling yourself what your safe space has already told you. You're safe. Okay. This next one is a bonus because not everyone is a person of faith. But if you're a person of faith like I am, definitely lean into that. Definitely release to your higher being. I'm a Christian. If you've been following the show, you know that. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. So I'm gonna talk to Jesus, right? I'm gonna go to the Lord in prayer. But if you're someone who's a person of faith, make sure you're communicating with your higher being, the creator, Allah, if that's who you worship. For me, it's Jesus. I'm gonna talk to Jesus in prayer and like, okay, God, what am I supposed to be doing? This is a lot. Please help me unpack this. Be honest. Be honest. When you're going in prayer, how should I unpack this? Gain your guidance. And then another tool, similarly, this is not a deity, obviously. This is your second brain. Go to your AI tool. There are plenty of people who are using AI as their like personal counselors. I'm not asking you to consider an AI tool as your personal counselor, but what I am doing is asking you to run your ideas, run your thoughts, run your emotions through that AI tool and ask it questions. Ask it to ask you questions, because the follow up questions that the AI tool can ask you can help you process your trauma and your triggers more logically, because you're using this part of your brain and not this part of your brain. Okay. And that way you can bring it down so you can focus again and then get back to finishing your book, because that's the ultimate goal with all of this. It's bringing your nervous system back down. The key is to regulate your nervous system. One of the key things I want you to consider when it comes to facing your triggers is coming up with a strategy to face them. You know your story. You know the way things unfold as it relates to navigating your trauma or your transition. Strategize the way you're going to face it. Here's a great metaphor for it. I learned this from Demayas Purdue. Demayas Purdue is someone who specializes in emotional intelligence. Here's a metaphor that he shares that I believe will be helpful for you. Think of your experience, your entire transition, your entire trauma, your mind as a house. Most of us usually deal with the front door or like the living room, right? The first part of the house that is presentable to everyone, right? And he says, as you go deeper into the house, there are going to be parts that have not been addressed yet because we don't like feeling the feelings, right? So he gives the example of a closet or the kitchen. Sometimes the kitchen might be messy. Obviously, anything that's in a closet is likely to be messy. But whether it's messy or tidy, the door is closed. So it's unaddressed, right? It's hidden, it's concealed. So you have the closet, you have the kitchen, you have a bathroom. The bathroom may be presentable, right? Because if you're expecting guests, they might need to use it if they come over. That might be more presentable. Now let's talk about the bedroom, right? He highlights the importance of addressing that because the bedroom is always closed off. When we have visitors over, we're not letting them come into the master bedroom, are we? That's our stuff, right? Like we're not necessarily letting them into there. So use this analogy for the different parts of your experience. Perhaps the pre-climax of your story, if you will, the part that is the rising action may be the bedroom. So start there, like, okay, let me unpack this part of the trauma first, or this part of my transition first. Let me process this in my journal. Let me process this with my safe space person so I can talk through it and it can be a little less painful for me to then retell in the book. Let me develop the language that I can then use in my book when I voice record my chapter or when I type my chapter. Okay. So this is one section of the house, right? The bedroom, that's the big red flag, right? Here's the next part that is also equally dark and concealed, which is the basement. Now, obviously, not all houses have basements. If you're living in Florida, you already know what I mean. Florida is at sea level Florida homes don't typically have basements. But if you're living in the Northeast or even in places like Georgia, houses have basements. And the basements, yeah, unless you've already converted your basement to being a living space or you rent your basement out, that basement needs some cleaning up. If we're being honest, right? And another place that may need some cleaning up or organizing is also the garage. Unless, like a basement, you've already converted that to being a living space, if you've already rented it out, or if you converted it to sort of a lounge, like an additional room. If you've already done that work, then that's cool. But 9 times out of 10, the basement and the garage usually require a whole lot of deep digging and reorganizing and cleaning, right? So within your story, your transition, your trauma, what are the deepest, most painful, darkest parts of that story? And cluster them in that way, label them in that way on a sheet of paper, on your phone. If you have a note-taking app that's on your tablet, if you have a tablet, something that's like a whiteboard or a brainstorming app. Like design a chart that's like that. Like, okay, this part of the story is my garage. This part of the story is the basement. Like nobody else knows about this. And this book is about to be my first time talking about it. And I'm really not sure I want to get into it. Like label it as such. And then as you're recording, your voice recording your chapters, you're typing your chapters, decide how you want to prioritize that. Perhaps you're a pilot. You want to face that thing head on. You want to get the most difficult stuff out of the way first. By all means, navigate through that stuff first. No problem. If you're someone that kind of, you really don't like confrontation, this kind of thing is bugging you, you really don't want to talk about it, that's okay. You can relegate it to a later portion of your recording process. But remind yourself that that is to come. Like you're going to face that. And perhaps strategizing it in that way will make it feel less overwhelming. Okay? Strategizing how you're going to face your triggers, tiering them by level of difficulty, level of severity, may be a cheat code for you in this recording process for your book. And here's a bonus cheat code. If you're someone who prefers to type, and this is the part that is your basement, this is the part that is the most difficult, the most painful, the part that makes you want to stop writing altogether. This is the point in your storytelling process where I would strongly advise you to voice record this. Don't type this one out. This is the part you'll want to talk out because, as I mentioned, the body needs words to heal. So because this part is the most difficult, it's going to be the most beneficial for your body, for your nervous system, if you talk it out versus typing it out. Let that be your cheat code. So number one reason why it's great is that you're talking it out. But reason number two that it's great is that talking is much faster than typing. The average human says 150 words per minute. Okay? So if you talk through this most difficult part, this most painful, most awkward, maybe most self-deprecating part, like this is the part of you where you're really showing where you messed up. And you don't want people to change the way they see you after you share this part, but you know it's an important part of the process. Talking through it gets you through that discomfort so much faster than if you were to type it out. Even if you got turbo fingers, God bless the folks that do. I'm like in the middle. I'm in the middle somewhere. But talking through this part will be much faster. You'll get through it that much more quickly. So take that as a bonus cheat code for facing your triggers. So, quick recap. Strategize how you want to face your triggers based on that house analogy. This part of my story is the front room. It's the den. It's the living room. This is easy. This part is my kitchen. It's a little bit messy because I use my kitchen. I cook. I have a family. My kiddos are sometimes messy. Sometimes my husband is messy. Sometimes, I have a relative that's living with me. Sometimes they're messy. I got to clean it up, right? This part is my bedroom. This is my vulnerable part. So maybe I keep this back for a little bit later. Or if you're the pilot type, you want to face it head on. You're like, all right, let me work on the bedroom part first because this part is awkward and uncomfortable and I just want to get it over with. This part of the story is my basement. It's the deepest, darkest part. Just so I know that I'm either facing this head on or I'm saving this for last, right? This part's my garage. It's messy. I don't like it. But I do need to navigate this. I do need to organize my thoughts here. I do need to set this up in a way that's going to be beneficial for my reader. You either are going to do that first or save it for last based on your personality, right? Based on your behavior style. But setting it up in priority, that's one. Two, having that safe space person that you can call and vent to when you just need to get it out and regulate your body, regulate your nervous system, and calm the lizard, calm the fear, right? Connected to that is the journaling, writing, like handwriting your feelings out. Handwriting your feelings out is more beneficial than typing, okay? There's something about the mind and body connection when you're writing something out, like handwriting it out. There's something about that tactile sensation of writing, okay? So even if you don't have a safe space person, make sure you're journaling your feelings in that moment when it's really difficult and you don't feel like writing, you want to push away from the desk. I get you. Write it out and vent, like be as open and blunt and colorful if you're the colorful type. If be as colorful as you need to be with the journal entry. And if you have the benefit of both, the safe person and the journal, do both. Okay? Then next, if you're a person of faith, release to your higher being. Whoever your deity is that you worship, go to your deity. In my case, I'm a child of God, so I'm worshiping Jesus, okay? Like I'm going to Jesus with this. So go to your deity in prayer. Lean on your faith with this. All right? If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below, or you can follow me on Instagram at Getting the Win Show and DM me your question, and I'm happy to answer it. If you want to join my community, DM me the word community. I'll shoot you a link to join mine. We cover this kind of stuff in there as well. So I pray this was beneficial for you. Be sure to comment, all the things. Comment, share, subscribe, all the things. Subscribe on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube at Getting the Win. I'm on Spotify, so if you're over there, follow me on Spotify at Getting the Win Show. It's Getting the Win Show on Spotify. And your girl is on TikTok officially, Mel T. Writes on TikTok, so you can follow me over there. I'm also on Pinterest and Threads at Getting the Win Show. Connect with me on the socials, and I'm glad to connect with you, answer any questions you may have, point you in the right direction. My name is Melissa. That name means honeybee, so I am here to help you blossom so that you can use your book to help others blossom, okay? In the meantime, in between time, thank you so much for watching. Have a great and productive rest of your Wednesday, a great and productive rest of your week. Stay tuned for next week's episode.